baby, here we go. The summer is in full swing, as indicated by the latest on the fourth period's NHL trade board. Am I happy to see this. This article, this commentary, this is where we will start to dive in to some of the biggest stories and biggest trade conversations of the summer. It's David Pagnotta's 2025 Summer Trade Watch List. It's going to be linked in the description for all of y'all's viewing pleasure. And if you've been paying attention to the way that I like to do these YouTube videos, you understand just how valuable this article is to me. This is like an infinite amount of topics right here. Every player has a bunch of teams, all of these teams have a bunch of names, and now for the Vancouver Canucks, we have ourselves the biggest update possible on Elias Pettersson. This is our PD trade update. Now, I don't want to just go over and look at the trade watch board over here, but I also wanted to look at some commentary made about Elias Pettersson from Darren Dreger on Sennecke and Price yesterday as well. But before we dive into Drege's quotes, let's talk about what Pagnotta writes about here on the fourth period. Elias Pettersson, 10th overall on the trade watch list, 26 years old, $11.6 million cap hit. The Canucks have said they prefer to keep Elias Pettersson, but Vancouver is open to taking calls. PD has a full no-movement clause that kicks in on July 1st, and his trade value is at a low point, so moving him may prove to be difficult. Teams reportedly linked to PD at this moment are the Buffalo Sabres, Detroit Red Wings, Minnesota Wild, Ottawa Senators, and Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, the interesting thing about this Trade Watch article, and this isn't going to be talked about in the title or the thumbnail, but some of these reported teams that are linked to PD, Buffalo and Minnesota in particular, there are players that are on these teams that Vancouver is linked to. That sounds kind of confusing, but let me explain. Buffalo and Minnesota are linked to Pettersson in this Trade Watch list. If you scroll up, Bowen Byram, for example, only has one team that is linked to him, and that is Vancouver. Same thing you could say about Marco Rossi, although there are a bunch more teams that are linked to him. Philly, Montreal, Nashville, Calgary, they're all in there. So, as I had said, man, endless amount of video topics from these kinds of articles, so I thank the heavens that be that David Pagnotta provided us with this today. But I wanted to dive into that Elias Pettersson trade update, and before we each start talking about the teams that are involved, let's go over onto what Darren Dreger said on Sennecke and Price from yesterday, courtesy of our amazing friend Canucks News Summaries, who went out there and summarized what Dreg said about the Canucks and about Elias Pettersson in particular. Dreg says that on PD he isn't really hearing a lot about him. However, teams that have had previous interest in Pettersson would start circling back now. Canucks management were calling around the league and visiting conversations, visiting ideas throughout the league too. And before the Colorado Avalanche extended Brock Nelson, they were interested in PD. These conversations are not unusual at this time of the year, according to Dreger. And so opening up the floor with that, hearing that this is around the time where some of these formerly interested teams would start circling back on Elias Pettersson, it does make sense to see the list of teams that are linked to PD at this time, starting out with the Buffalo Sabres. Now, we did speak about it. Bowen Byram on this same trade watch list is linked to Vancouver. Could there be some sort of a Bowen Byram for EP40 trade on the horizon? Obviously, you would prefer to keep both of these assets if you're Vancouver, but if Elias Pettersson were to get sent around at this point in his career, obviously the article says that his value is at an all-time low. The guy is coming off of a 45-point season and a year where everything went wrong. His point production almost cut in half. Everybody was clamoring about him in this feud with JT Miller. It's gotten to a point here where you can't really estimate how far down Elias Pettersson's potential trade value has gotten. Either way, Having Pettersson alongside of a Tage Thompson or a J.J. Peterka or a Josh Norris in Buffalo does sound like a pretty reasonably fine idea. It's just J.J. Peterka is also listed on this trade watch list too, so who really knows if he is going to stick around long term. It's already been reported that some of these Buffalo guys are frustrated and potentially interested in finding new NHL homes. So is Elias Pettersson the guy to be able to dig that franchise out of the dumps in that way? I'm not sure. The Detroit Red Wings are listed here also as a Pettersson-linked team, and if you were to say Petey could be a second-line center behind Dylan Larkin, D-Boss, I actually like that fit a lot. Everybody was talking about Pettersson and Datsuk in the same breath when Petey made his debut in the league all those years ago. So what better way to live up to the comparison than to become a Detroit Red Wing, a super sweet Detroit Red Wing, and hopefully try to do your deeks one more time. Pettersson and Raymond didn't really play all that well together at the Four Nations this previous stint, which, to be fair, Pettersson didn't really play well with anybody in that tournament, so maybe it's unfair of a comparison to bring up, but I do wonder what Raymond and Petey could look like together long-term as an NHL duo. Maybe if Larkin eventually finds himself out of Detroit at some point. Pettersson does have that talent to become a number one, it's just, we just hope to see that one more time. The Minnesota Wild are also listed here too. Pettersson for Rossi obviously is way lopsided in Vancouver's favor. You would hope to keep Pettersson if you're just acquiring Marco Rossi, but if the Wild and the trying to capitalize on Elias Pettersson and his potential, having that 1-2 center punch duo of super Swedes between Petey and Joel-Erik Sennecke does sound like a really good idea. Pettersson with Kaprizov could be as good as Pettersson and Kuzmenko was, except probably with a higher octane ceiling and more offensive capabilities. Pettersson and Kuzmenko was already a 100-point combination for Petey and a 39-goal combination for Kuzi. What more of Pettersson and Cappy? Do you guys call him Cappy in Minnesota? I don't really know. That doesn't sound all too right, but considering how good Kuzmenko was with Elias Pettersson, I do like the idea of having Kaprizov playing alongside of him too. The Ottawa Senators being linked as a Pettersson destination is very interesting. They just got rid of Josh Norris. They just grabbed on to Dylan Cozens. I do kind of think about it like, hey, if Pettersson and Timmy Stu are the 1-2, and you have Cozens as a 3C, that is a lot of potential there down the middle for the Ottawa Senators. I think, honestly, it could be seen as maybe even a little bit of overkill there. Unless, of course, the Canucks were able to get a Dylan Cozens or somebody back in return, which I don't really think they'd be interested in trading away at this point. I do kind of wonder, though, Cozens as a number one center? Maybe back in 2019 we thought that was possible, but I'm not too sure nowadays. And I'm also feeling about it like, yeah, Rick Tocchet is no longer in Vancouver. It doesn't really feel like a Dylan Cozens-like player is all too mandatory for the Vancouver Canucks structure and system that they want to play. If Tocchet was still in Vancouver, then okay, yeah, go nuts. Get Dylan Cozens because that would be the perfect Tocchet guy. But now, with Adam Foote opening the door to more offensive creativity being on the horizon here, I kind of wonder if that's not really something the Canucks should explore at this point. And then finally, Columbus being linked as the last Pettersson destination. I mean, yeah, Adam Fantilli is a number one center to be. He is so good. Sean Monahan had a fantastic season. Is he a number one center? Maybe he's a number one in Columbus, but maybe not league-wide. Having a 1-2-3 of Pettersson, Fantilli, and Monahan, or swap it around, have Fantilli as the number one taking charge because he just came off of a 30-goal season. Pettersson with Voronkov and Chinakhov and Marchenko would be so good. Although, of course, you don't necessarily want to mess with the mojo that you saw with Marchenko, Voronkov, and Monahan. Maybe you have Pettersson as a winger alongside of a Kent Johnson and a Fantilli. Two Michigan guys and Petey. Doesn't that sound like an interesting idea? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about all these Elias Pettersson trade destinations, how David Pagnotta has linked the Columbus Blue Jackets, Buffalo Sabres, Detroit Red Wings, Ottawa Senators, and Minnesota Wild to Elias Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.